So now, assuming that our data collection field all worked great and everything came back in just the way we wanted to, now we've got our data and we want to be able to create some kind of map that we can hand out to some other people. So we're going to just go really roughly because we're starting to kind of get low on time. We're going to go through this kind of in a quick and dirty fashion and make a map. So one of the first things I like to do when I'm making a map is to figure out the scale that we want the map at. And what we use at UC Davis Arboretum is basically a scale where 1 inch on the map equals 20 feet on the ground. And it's good to pick a whole number like that because then when you put stuff on your map, you can easily measure things off of the map. So you could give that map to somebody who wants to go out and put some new plantings in, and they can actually kind of measure things out on the map. Or if they wanted to put in a pathway that they know they want to be 10 feet wide, it's really easy for them to draw that in because your map is to a scale. So that's a good thing to do. So the way that scales generally work is that you can see up here in the scale box I have this 1 to 500, and that's my current scale, and that means that 1 inch on the ground or 1 inch on our map is going to equal 500 inches on the ground. And now because I want to change the scale on that, I want my map to be at 1 inch on my map equals basically 20 feet on the ground, or 240 inches. I'm going to put in 240 up here. So I just type in 240. ArcMap will zoom into that scale, and we can zoom over to this area or pan to this area using the hand tool to be able to look at the area we want to make a map for. Now you can see right now that this particular section, not all of it's going to fit on one page. So if we can see that some of it is cut off and it's not gonna fit. So generally, what we do is use map books or multiple pages of maps to be able to get all that information in there. At UC Davis, we use a little add-on program called Map Logic Layout Manager that we pay. Excuse me, I think it's about $100 a year for that program. But there's a new program or a new extension or feature in ArcMap that allows you to create these map books using ArcGIS, and that's called data-driven pages. But to do that, you have to have some indexing set up. So you basically have to go through and draw the areas that you want to be you want to represent a page. And since we're kind of short on time today, we're not going to go through and do that, but that feature is really well documented, so you can go through the ArcGIS help and look for data-driven pages, and it'll tell you how to go about doing that. So we're just going to go through an exercise of creating one-page map. And the way that we generally do that is first, of course, change our scale, pan to the area you want to go or you want your map to be for. And then down here you can see there's this little button for Layout View, or you can go to the View menu and select Layout View. And this gives us a different view basically from Data View, as it actually shows us our page layout, and we can make some changes to this. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is actually change the page size and make sure that it is a standard 8.5 by 11. So to set up your page, you go to the File menu, and you go to Page and Print Setup. And you can see it's got size letter, that's great, but I want to change it to a landscape orientation, which lends itself a little better to this area. And you could select your printer here if you wanted to, but we're not going to do that now. And you can see down here there's this option for data-driven pages that will help you set up that map book scenario. We're just going to hit OK. And now we've got a landscape set up, but you can see our map is kind of going off the page. So when you're in Layout View, it gives you another toolbar here for managing your layout. I'm going to just take that and dock it in the upper right. Okay, so now what we want to do, I always like to turn on some options that makes drawing our map a little bit easier or working with it. If you right-click out here, anywhere in a blank spot, and hit the ArcMap options, and then go to the tab for Layout View. And in here you can control some of the features in Layout View. I like to have the ruler on, and you can change the way the ruler is divided. I especially like using the grid, and you can change how far apart the grid is, but this helps you line things up and make your map look nice and clean. And you can turn on the grid, so click the show box here, and the spacing is fine. 1/4 inch is a nice spacing. And then down here you see the snap elements too. This means that when you're moving things around on the page, they'll snap into place with certain things. I like to have it snap to the grid, and snap to the margins of the page is nice. You can also have it snap to the ruler, but that can still be a bit much.
Can you switch back and forth from snapping to having it without that?
Sure, yeah. If you ever want to turn it off, you just come back in here and uncheck these boxes. You hit OK, and now you can see that it's drawn a grid on the page for me, which will make it really easy to line stuff up. So one of the first things I want to do now is to take this what we call the data frame here and click on it, and then we can actually move it around on the page and get it into a spot that fits correctly. And you may have to pan around using the scroll bars on the side. And grab the corners of this data frame and drag it to where you'd like. I'm going to leave a little bit of extra room at the bottom and kind of line this up with the 2-inch mark on the ruler on the left side there. And this will give me some room to put some scale bars and a north arrow and a couple other things that I'm going to want to have on my map. So now if you want your whole page to be able to fit into this view, on the layout toolbar, there's a button from the left that says zoom whole page. Click on that, it kind of fits everything nicely into the window for us. Now let's see, so I'm going to want to add, now we've got the area of the map pretty much set up. I'm going to want to add a few things to it. I think I'd like to have a little bit stronger of a border around this frame, so I'm going to click on it and then hit Properties. And then there's a tab for Frame here, and you can see Border at the top. And you can hit the down arrow and select a different border type. And I'm going to let you guys get crazy and pick whatever one you want. If you want to go with the double nautical dash, that's an especially adventurous one. I'll try that one. Ooh, that's exciting. I actually usually just use a solid line, but and now I'm going to want to add some features to my map. So from the Insert menu up at the top here, there's a whole list of things that we could put into this. So maybe you want to have a title, so we can insert title and ask, what title would you like to give your map? This is the South Arackace section. So we can hit OK, and it places that in there, and I'm going to put my title down here. And maybe I want to change the font on this, so I can right-click it, hit Properties, and it lets you put in some information here. If you do Change Symbol, you can change the font to anything you'd like. I'm going to get really adventurous with my map now and use the Chiller font and make it bold. That's a little small, so I might want to make that bigger. You can also double-click on something to get the properties of it. Go up to pretty big text here. There we go. In honor of Halloween, we're using the Chiller font. Okay, and now we can add a few other things. Let's see what else we have on this Insert menu. One thing that's really nice to have is the date that your map was created or printed. And this way you can, if someone's looking at a map that you have printed out, they can see maybe how outdated the information is. So this dynamic text is just a relatively new feature in ArcGIS. You can put current date, and then this date will update automatically every time you open this document, so that way you don't have to change it. So I selected that, and it puts that in there, and I can drag that over to a spot that I want on the map. Another good thing that's good to have is a north arrow. Although with GIS data, the default is always for north to be up. It's sometimes good to have. Maybe we wanted to rotate this area so that we can fit a little bit more of it on the screen. We could do that, and the north arrow will rotate with it and reflect that. So you can get adventurous here again and pick anything from this style or this library of wild north arrow styles. I kind of like this one. I'm going to select number 81, and then that places on your map. And now if you wanted to change the rotation of this, we do want to get this section in there a little bit more. We can click on the data frame here, or where our data is, right click and get properties. I think on the general tab there's a field for rotation, and it looks like I want to rotate this maybe about 30 degrees or so. Oh, wrong way. I think I wanted negative 30. So we'll try again here. Put a negative in front of that. And now it kind of lines our data up so that it fits a little bit better. Now we can slide over and fit a little bit more on this page. So we grab the pan tool and we can pan. We can almost get the whole entire section on there. So that could work out. Now you can see it actually changed my scale here, so it's not at the 240 scale that I wanted before. So I'll hit 240 and it zooms in, and unfortunately I lost a little bit. But maybe you want to go with a scale that is 1 inch equals 30 feet. So that would be 360, right? And now I can fit the whole entire section on my page. And now you can see also that the north arrow has rotated here. If I had used one that actually had a north symbol on it, or the letter N, we'd be able to see that it actually rotated that. So I can change the style here and pick one that has a north on it, someone like this. And now you can see that north has been adjusted to point to the correct north direction. Some other information I might want to add from the insert menu. Maybe we want to have a legend that tells us what the different features are in our map. And we don't have everything turned on here, but I think just how we have it is probably okay for now. Arrow photography, we don't need to have that represented in our legend. So on the left side here where it says legend items, we can remove that by clicking on it and selecting the arrow button, and that gets rid of it. Our area of interest, we don't really need that, so we can also remove that. The section boundary, that'd be good to know what that looks like. The pavement segment is also good to know what that looks like. And the mass plantings and plant centers are probably good as well. Pavement segment, I'm actually going to remove that as well for simplicity's sake and just focus on the plants and the section boundary. Okay, so we have those three things. You can hit next. And it always wants to put a legend title on there, but it's usually pretty evident that a legend is a legend, so I usually get rid of that word. So you delete that and hit next. And you can put some borders or backgrounds or drop shadows on this to make it work on your map. I'm just going to leave it blank and hit next. And you can change the size and shape of the symbols in the legend. We'll leave those as their defaults. And then also you can change the spacing and organization of these things on there. So we'll leave those as well. And hit finish. And you can see it puts in a legend for us. Now we actually can't really fit this legend in with our map the way it's oriented. So you can make quite a few adjustments to this by double clicking on it and bringing up its properties. Alternatively, you can right click on it and hit properties. One thing you can do, I think somewhere in here you can change how many columns there are. Yeah, on the item tab you can change the columns to have 3 columns. Now when you move out of the way you can see that that starts to be reflected. But what it's doing is it's actually putting just plant center into 3 columns, I think. So we want to keep that as 1, but we can make it so that mass planting starts in a new column and section starts in a new column. We hit OK, now it should draw it a little bit more in a way that we can deal with it. And now you can go into each one of these things, and if you hit Style, you can go in and really customize each item in the legend to your heart's content. But we're kind of running low on time, so I'm going to skip that step of going through it and just leave it the way it is. And I want to make it fit, so I can grab this corner here and toggle it down to a small size, which probably won't fit all that great on my map. But you can also overlay it on your map. There's a number of different things you can do with it. And actually, if you go over to change the way things look on the table of contents, it'll update how it is in the legend. So right now you can see that all these plant center types we're not using. We only have trees and shrubs in our list right now. So I can double click on plant center, go to the symbology tab, and remove all the ones that I'm not using. So if you click on one and hit remove, it should theoretically go away from that list. Maybe. There it goes. So I can go through and get rid of all the things that I'm not using here, and then my legend will be a lot more manageable. And can uncheck this box for all other values since we only have trees or shrubs. And now our legend is a lot easier to deal with. And the same with mass plantings. We only have homogeneous mass plantings in this particular area, so we can go through and remove all of those. And then do that, and now we have a nice small legend that'll fit easily in the area that we have. A couple other things you might want to add are scale bars. So you can do from the insert menu, you can insert scale bar. And there's a library of those kind of set up for you to choose from here. I like the alternating scale bar, that's always a good one. And there's lots of properties with these. You can change the different ways that they're broken up. So this one actually worked out okay. It's got about 100 feet on there. But you can see that it's kind of subdivided into 12.5 to 25 feet increments, and it breaks at 12.5. And you can change that to be whole numbers. Since by double-clicking on it, you get the properties, and you can see how many divisions it has, how many subdivisions it has, change the units, all kinds of stuff. So there's plenty of things that you can do with it in there. I think the other thing that I usually like to put on there, which I think is a little easier to read, is scale text. And I want to know how many inches equal how many feet. So I'm going to click on that one, click OK, and it adds a text that tells us that 1 inch equals 30 feet, which is a nice thing to know because then you can really easily measure stuff on your map. And that's probably most of the information I would put on here. I might choose to put maybe our Arboretum logo on this map, which we've brought with us as part of your files. So to do that, you could do Insert Picture. And then if we navigate to Computer, to the T drive, to our folder full of data, inside there's the Arboretum logo. You can hit Open. And that places on the map all kinds of big, but you can pan that out of the way and grab the corner of it and scale that down to a size that might fit on our map. And we could put that on there. And now this isn't the most beautifully composed map because we're kind of rushing through this today. I particularly like the border I put on it. I think that's really flashy. But you get the general idea, I think. Do you guys have any questions about how you would go through making a map? Sure.
Just as the arrow moves, if you shift the picture, if you resize the picture, does the scaling also adjust?
If I resize the picture? Oh, yes, the scale bar does adjust. Yeah, so if we can actually do that. If I went and I used the zoom tools here and I zoomed out, the scale bar will slowly start adjusting. You see the units will change on it. So yeah, it's dynamic. Mm-hmm. The label rotation. That one's a little bit trickier. I think that you can change the rotation of the actual annotation manually, and that is a little bit tricky. So the annotation is placed whenever we did that step where we said create annotation for selected features. It will place itself at the appropriate angle. Like if you already have the screen rotated and then you do that step, they'll come out straight. But if you rotate before placing them. But you can go through and actually edit these, edit the annotation. And I think that you can do it right here on the editor toolbar. There's this edit annotation tool. It's to the right. And I think you can click on it. And then I think there's a rotate mode. What's this do? Yeah, so that changes it to rotate mode, and then you can actually shift that label around to make it flat. So you can adjust those in there.
The label, the columns, and the adjusting, moving things off the legend. How would you get
Yeah, so with most of the things that you insert on your map, you can usually get properties by just double clicking on it. So if I double click on that legend, it'll bring up the legend properties, and there's many different things that you can customize in here. There's the title and the size of the patches that are on there, the spacing between them. The items here, you can choose which map layers you want to have on here. The step where I removed, when we had all the different plant center types and I removed a few of those, that's actually a little bit different. That you get that by making changes to the layer properties in the table of contents. So to do that, I just double clicked on plant center here, and then on the symbology tab, it has all the different types. Now I could add the different ones back in that I've gotten rid of by hitting add values. Or if you need to get rid of one, you just select it and hit remove, and then it'll remove it. So it didn't remove when you did that? Okay. Basically, the two ways that you modify the legend is the way that things look in the table, the symbology here. So if I wanted to change my symbol for my plant, which is, we'll do this actually, this is a pretty neat step. There's a file I mentioned earlier that's on the APGJ website called plant symbols, and that has basically a font file in it that has all those different plant symbols in it. So if I want to make my tree look like a tree, I can click on that, and if you double click on it, it brings up this symbol selector. If you hit edit symbol, you can do a couple different things. You can do a character marker symbol, and then you change the font to this very strangely named font that hopefully is on here, which I'm not seeing actually. Do you guys have a font that starts with a D that has a strange names? Anyone in there? DVLTS or something along those lines? Let's try this actually. They were supposed to be installed on these computers, but it's possible they weren't. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Can you check and see if they have that font installed? It's the DVLTS, I believe it's called.
When you put these in the books, you're talking about keeping them up and then just stick them
Yeah.
and you have a pagination feature too that automatically.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So the data-driven pages, which I'm sorry that we don't have time to go over today, the data-driven pages will will automatically update things. So you draw basically boundaries of where you want your pages to be, and then you give them a number as an actual feature class. So you would create a page number feature class, right? And inside of it, you would have an attribute for page number, said 1, 2, 3 for these different rectangles. And then the data-driven pages will go through and it will zoom to those pages automatically and then update the text. So it'll say page 3, or page 4 on it, and it will change the information on it. And you can basically, the help for it is actually quite good, and it will tell you clearly how to actually create that, and it walks you through it step by step.
So if you were to build a little booklet of arboretum map booklet, could you then also PDF it?
Yeah, and actually what we can do is, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up since the plant symbol font doesn't seem to be installed here. And now we're just going to say that our plant map here is finished. I'm going to stop editing, save my edits, and then I want to export this as a PDF. So to do that, do File, Export Map, and then change the file type to PDF. And then it's always good to, you can choose a location to save this, but I'm going to go to Computer, go to my T drive, go to my GIS for Public Gardens Workshop data, and I'm going to leave it as Eric KCE section. You can change some formats. 300 DPI is generally pretty good for printing out and viewing on screen. You can change these different options. If the color space, if you're only going to view it on the screen, RGB is good. If you're going to print it, CMYK is a better choice. And that's pretty much all you need to know about that. And you just hit save. And it goes through and it exports that PDF for you. Hopefully it goes past 51%.
This software you're developing or this program that does it have linkages to a web, to the internet also? I mean, could you create your database in such a way that you could actually let others do it through the web?
Yeah, so that is something that we're working on a bit. ArcGIS has a complement to the desktop software we've been working with today, which is the server version, so ArcGIS Server. And that's relatively complicated software, but it does provide the capacity for being able to distribute this information through the web. So UC Davis, we created a web mapping application for that, and if you stick around after, I can show you that. Okay, so now our PDF map is finished exporting. We want to take a look at that. If you click the Windows Explorer icon here at the bottom and go to the T drive, go to our GIS for Public Gardens folder, you should see a PDF document for AirKC section. You can open that up. And unless things went crazy, it should look like just like what we saw on the screen. And this is I think it should be a relatively small file. This is a 1 megabyte file, so it's not very big. And you can make other pages manually and attach those in there, or you can use the data-driven pages. We'll export multi-page PDFs for you. And I don't know what happened there. One of the cool things about these PDFs recently is there are some tools that will actually let you get the coordinates. So we'll keep the GPS coordinates or the actual latitude and longitude information in these PDFs so you can distribute them and people can actually get a little bit of data out of them. So it's kind of neat. You can actually, I believe, go to the layers palette here. Looks like it doesn't. Yeah, I know, it's going to close it. No, it won't let me do it. But if this program was activated, you could go on the layers palette here, and you can actually turn off the layers in the PDF. So it actually kind of acts like a light version of GIS software. So you could distribute it to people who, other people who aren't GIS users in your organization, and they can interact with it. So it's pretty neat. I know that was quick, but are there any questions on that process? Yeah, Vic?
Ryan, say you put considerable effort into creating this layout. You can save that layout for consistency, say, for use in other creations.
You certainly can, yeah. There's you do from the file menu. You can, of course, all save our map right now. That's a good idea. But then you can also save this as a template that you can open up and then easily modify. So if you do save as from this drop-down box here. Oh, there used to be template. I think they got rid of that, actually. Angie, do you know what happened to MXTs? Map templates, are they gone?
They're not gone. They're just different extensions.
It's possible. It used to be right here. You could change it to ArcMap template, but it's a good question, but you stumped me. You can always, what I usually do actually in this kind of template scenario is that I'll just save this map. Say I wanted to make the same kind of map for another section of my collection or my garden. I would just save this map under a different name, and then I would just pan my data over to that area, or pan my view over to that area, and use the same layout format as I did for the other ones. So that's one way of going about it. Are there any other questions about this process? Okay, well, I've got a few more slides I wanted to run through as a kind of a wrap-up and summary, and then we can do some more questions if need be. So we're done with ArcMap here, so you can go ahead and close it and save any changes.